Hi and welcome back to the channel. Now, when you're talking e-bike conversion kits, as in kits where you take a normal non-electric bike, such as mine behind me, and then convert it into an e-bike that is legal to use on the road, in that it is assisted power as opposed to using a throttle, there's one company that really stands out in the UK, and that is Swytch. They've been doing it for a number of years and their kits have evolved year on year. And today I'm going to open and install the very latest version of the Swytch kit onto my bike. So stay tuned and we'll open this box and go through the full process. So I'd like to kick things off by saying a huge thank you to Swytch for providing this kit. I'm super excited to see it actually, because I bought one of the early Swytch kits probably 6 or 7 years ago. The company's been around since 2017, so it's still a relatively young company, but in an industry that's growing quite quickly. So I'm fascinated to see just how much they have moved on. So let's get started. So it's a big box, and there's a reason why it's a big box, of course. It's because it contains a wheel, as you can see here on my camera from above. So if I get these cardboard bits out of the way, you can have a look at it. So first and foremost is the wheel. Now, when you're placing your order, you specify the size of the wheel that you need and also the color. I went for black because, as you can see behind me, my bike has black wheels, or maybe you can't, but it has black wheels. And of course, in the middle of this is the motor. So you see the hub here has the motor in the middle. It's a 250 watt motor, which is legal in the UK for on the road. Any higher isn't. It's technically then a motorbike, in which case you need to insure it, you need to wear a proper helmet, etc. Whereas this, you can ride without any kind of license. I'd still recommend a helmet though. And I do have a helmet that I reviewed in one of my earlier videos specifically for e-bikes because it can take an impact at a higher speed. Have a look at that, it's in the back catalogue. But yes, so that's the wheel. The motor, if I'm honest, I think it's slightly smaller than the other one. I could be imagining it, but that doesn't stand out. And the previous one did kind of stand out as an electric hub. Let me pop that behind me. Right, what else we got in here? So let's get these cardboard outer bits out of the way. And then what you're left with, the main bit, and it's the heaviest bit, is this. Now this is the battery. So let's have a look. So the previous battery on my initial kit, you actually put a bracket on the front handlebars and then it kind of bolted on there. And while it was out of the way and it meant you could still have your water bottle on and stuff, what it did mean is that there was quite a lot of weight at the front of the bike, which I was never a huge fan of. It didn't really influence the way you steered the bike, but I just didn't really gel with it. I got used to it, but it wasn't my favourite. Whereas this, incidentally, on the front there, you've got an instruction manual there. So if you want some extra help, there is just a QR code that will take you how to do it, and all the manuals are there. Safety warnings, first and foremost. And then you have this. So this is the battery. So this will go underneath that central, so here, underneath this central crossbar. I don't know if you can see it on the video, so I'll stop going to the bike. So by hanging this off the central crossbar, it means that it's not in the way of your legs, it's not adding weight at the front, it's weight right in the middle of the bike, which is where you are. So therefore, that's actually pretty logical. So yeah, I look forward to installing that. It just seems to have one port on the front. You've got a power button on the side and then an output there. And it looks like some extra sockets there. Not sure how you use those yet, but we'll get to that. What else we got in here? I've got a cable here. Let's have a look what's in this. So this is your main connection to the battery. So as you can see, it's quite a beefy port, but it does match the hole on the side of there. So therefore it's going to go into there. And at the other end of this, it looks like you've got quite a few possible connections. One of these will inevitably go to the motor. I'm imagining it's that one. And then these, one of them will probably be a computer, which I think is in here. One of them will be the sensor. So in terms of the fact that you've got a sensor on the pedals that go in the middle to tell the motor, or at least the kind of computer within the battery, how much effort you're putting in, and then the motor will support you. As I said, it's not something that you use without putting any effort in. It is about enhancing your own performance. So those cables we'll look at shortly. Let's see what we've got in these boxes here. So this is your pedal assist sensor that I was just referring to, if I can get in the box. It's very secure. I'll just tear it open a little bit. Okay, so we've got a whole load of tie wraps, which is useful because of course what you don't want is trailing cables, so that's nice and neat. And then you have this. So this is the holder for the sensor. Now this will go around your pedal. So it goes up the kind of the bar of the pedal and then will be around the center, so therefore it can tell as the wheel is turning when you're pedaling. And you've got some clips. We'll go through the installation of that shortly. And then box number 2 is, again, difficult to open. Oh, I've just got weak hands today. So we get in here, we've got this. So this is the actual cadence sensor. So this is that pedal sensor. So this bit, it goes on the actual frame itself. So that stays in one place. And then that sensor that I just showed you, and this is more of it, that goes on the actual pedal unit. That means that as it's going past this, these are the magnets. These magnets will trigger that to tell it just how much movement it's get. You see the magnets are a certain distance apart, and that will highlight just how fast you're going by how quickly the magnets go past that sensor. It's simple tech, but it's really good. Let's get those bits out of the way. And again, you've got loads and loads and loads of tie wraps. They really do just want this neat, which is fantastic. As I said, I don't want trailing cables on my bike either. So that's great. Next box. This one feels a little bit heavier. So this one is the charging plug. So fairly straightforward. Just got power on one side, 3-pin on one side, and then the dual plug on the other. And then I've got one box left, and then we have everything. So this is the display, it says on the box. There we go. So this is an optional accessory, I believe, which you can then put on your handlebars. It's not too big at all. You've got a power button on top, which is really good, so you don't actually have to touch the unit. And you've got an up and down, and then you've got an M, which I suspect is probably menu. So the very last thing, which was hidden underneath the cardboard here, is the charger, and this is where that power cable will lead to. So we open this. This is a transformer, so that end, that matches the side of the battery. So that'll go straight into the battery, and that's just the normal 2-pin that you saw earlier. So I said this will just be a transformer that takes it down from 240 volts to 42 volts. So it's going to charge at a decent rate, actually. That's great. So you shouldn't take too long charging it. So that's cool. Okay, so first things first on the installation is the wheel. So I've taken my front wheel off my bike, which is sat there on its forks. Now, there's a couple of things you've got to bear in mind. One, of course, your new wheel doesn't come with any tyre or inner tube, so therefore you are going to have to take it off your existing wheel. Also, of course, it doesn't know if you have disc brakes or normal brake pads. So in which case, if you have disc brakes, then you need to take them off your existing wheel. And then there is the space on the Swytch wheel to install them. If you can see them just here, then you've got the screws already in place. So you put your disc brake onto your new wheel. And of course, be sure to pay attention when you're doing it to check that it's rotating in the right direction. Your disc brakes will likely have, I think you can see it on that image, likely have a little arrow telling you the direction they go. So bear that in mind. So I'm going to crack on first and foremost with getting this tyre off, and then we'll fit it on that wheel, and then we'll go from there. So to make it easy to work with, I'm going to pump it up. I have a pump down here. Okay, so the next thing to come off is, of course, the existing discs. So once you've got the disc loose and off, remember which side is the out. Maybe lay it down with the out facing upwards so you don't forget. And then the wheel itself, I'm assuming you're probably going to put this somewhere safe just in case you decide to take this kit off at some point in the future, maybe to sell the bike because you want to put the kit in a new bike, that kind of thing. So in which case, you want to make sure you don't lose any pieces. Now, the Swytch wheel comes with Allen screws already in to be able to connect the disc, which means these ones belong to this wheel. So make sure you put them back into the wheel just so you don't lose them. So if you are removing the kit and putting the disc back on here in future, you're not having to take the screws out of your Swytch unit, which might not screw in perfectly into these threads. So make sure you put these back in, maybe just finger tight, just so at least you know where they are. Okay, so we're done with that wheel. As I said, just put it somewhere safe. I'm just going to pop it over there for now, and brings us back to the Swytch wheel. So if you pop it on your work surface, or in my case, a pool table, and you need to start by getting these existing Allen keys out. Okay, so once you've got those screws out, and they were in tightly, you're left with the space, but you've also got this actual spacer. So it's good to look at your wheel, your previous wheel, as to whether or not you need that. Now on my previous wheel, the discs were they were kind of past the centre and actually a little bit further in, which means, of course, that you want to try and replicate that on the new wheel, because that means that's where the actual brake disc unit that the disc goes into will be positioned. So if you don't need the spacer, which I don't, then take it off. Remember the rotation, so the wheel rotates that way. I can see the arrow on the brake also goes that way. So remember to put that over the top, make sure it's facing exactly the same way, and then screw it on. Right, once your disc is on, so it's level, it's flat, it's nice and secure, then it's just a case of fitting the wheel on the bike, and then we'll get started on the battery installation. So far, this is relatively straightforward, as I'd expect. Okay, so when it comes time to install the wheel, you've got to be super conscious of the brake disc and the actual brake unit, because obviously you've got to line them up. You'll tend to find, looking at the bottom of your forks, if you can see them on here, you'll tend to have kind of a straight installation on both sides. So if you look at the axle on the Swytch wheel, you will also find that it is kind of straight, and then round at the edges, because obviously you've still got to be able to screw into it to tighten it. So bear that in mind when you are installing it, that you want obviously those pieces to line up. So if I hold it in the right position, make sure it's loose. These are plastic covers, so you'll need to pop that off. And then I should just be able to pick this up, keeping that level. So remaining conscious of the discs, so we'll make sure the discs go on the outside. And then lining that up on both sides. Checking that I've got the flat bit, which I have, and then you just push it on, and with that, you're in. It's installed, and it's flat, and it's level, and the disc is exactly where it's meant to be in the pad. Right, the rubber covers are back on the front wheels. They're tightened now, so take the water bottle out. Got to just undo these screws. Okay. Here is our battery. So where this goes is over the top, but also around here. So you've got Velcro to support you on all of this. So over here, you've got a strap that comes around, if you can see on this camera, a strap that goes round and through there and then back on itself and then tightens. It's kind of rubber backed, which is cool, a kind of neoprene. And then this one is exactly the same for going round the frame. So if we loosen those bits off, figure out exactly where it's going to go. Obviously you've got to be conscious if you've got any brake cables in the way, which I have. So this needs to make sure it feeds under the brake cable so it doesn't interfere with their ability to work. And do the same thing over here. It's a bit tighter at the back, so I have to do it at slightly off angle. And then this back one, just to stop it moving around at the back as well. And then we pull that as tight as we can given the space, which is not very much in this case. And that is the battery pack installed. Now that's not going to move around a great deal, which is good because you don't want to have to worry about motion from it. And it's not really in the way because it's not too much wider than the frame. So it's a good start, it's nice and neat. So the next thing is all the cabling that leads to it. So we start with this. So this is the main connection that goes into the unit. So if I connect it first and foremost, that will allow us to dictate where everything else connects. So if I just plug in there, that lines up. So that goes into there. So it's clicked in, it's nice and secure, and then we can start to secure everything else. So first and foremost is probably grab one of these millions of tie wraps that come with this kit and just hold that one in place. So we'll go and get that nice and tight, and we can trim the excess off when we've finished the installation. Now that's underneath my frame, so it's nice and neat. And then we've got to figure out where all these cables go. So the big one here will feed to the front wheel, which is the power. So I'm going to clip that to go round this side because the connection to the front wheel is on the left-hand side. So I want to bring it around the front just so it's giving it a little bit less kind of interference, because I think if I come this way too much, I think it's going to just be a bit too open. I'm going to end up with too much cable as well. So down at the bottom of the wheel here, the connection, what you want to do is this is already pointing down. Hopefully you can see that. And so you want to maintain that pointing down. So this cable I'm going to clip pointing up. So it goes down first and then the wire comes up, and that's where I'll connect it. The reason for that, of course, is simply because gravity will do its thing when it's raining, and you want the rain to be going down and dripping off this as opposed to going into it. So what I do with the connection here is you've got a little arrow on the side, and if you can see it there, it's not easy to spot. There's a little arrow, and there's also a little arrow on this unit here, which I can just about see. So the idea is you line up the two arrows and you just simply push the two pieces together, and that will give you your solid connection. And of course, because it's feeding from the top and the rubber sheath goes over the top, water ingress shouldn't be a problem because water will flow down over the top of the sheath. Now it does take a bit of a push. There is actually a line next to the arrow on the wheel end of the cable, so you just make sure you push the other piece right down to that line. Now I'm going to use one of these clips just above to make sure it stays in place so that connection doesn't get any pressure put on it. So it's just nice and secure at both sides and will just stay exactly where it's meant to be. So that will be fine now. That's good and solid. I don't have to worry about that. I'll do one more up here. You've got to bear in mind, of course, if you've got a wheel like this, forks like this that have got suspension built in, you can't have this cable too tight because, of course, you have to bear in mind this is going to go up and down as you're riding over rough terrain. So make sure that if you're pinning this, you're pinning it just below the fork and not just above, because at the end of the day that's going to flex in the middle, and you want the flex to be up here where it won't really move a great deal. Okay, so I've loosened the control, the little panel that goes up top. It is literally, as I said, just a little Allen key, so just going to make sure you don't lose that bolt, and then just literally clip it around. It couldn't be easier from an installation point of view. That's in the right place for me to see it, which is obviously super important, but also to be able to reach and control it. I'm fascinated to see what information that shows, because there's a decent chance that will show you things like your speed and stuff, which is pretty cool to have information to have to hand. Now with that installed, I want to of course make sure that the cable has no strain on it and is just secured out of the way. So I'm going to clip it relatively close to the unit, but still with just a little bit of flex there, just so it's not likely to get damaged by anything. Okay, let me show you around what I've done so far. So obviously there's no right or wrong way to do some of this wiring because every bike is going to be different. There's probably some guidelines you could adhere to, like safety ones, keeping the wires away from moving parts. But crucially, how you clip it and where you clip it will be fairly unique to your bike. But what I've done here is I have fed my cable from the motor up here, and then it comes round to that side of the bike and then connects to the battery here. So it comes all the way across this. So here's the cable, this one here. And then the second cable, which has the connections, I've clipped to the side of my frame here, which gives me all 4 connections. Now these are the 2 spare ones. Now I've fed the one that will go to the cadence sensor around to here, and I've clipped it. So this will then just need securing either probably under this frame or alongside. I'm conscious of putting it underneath. Obviously it gets all the muck thrown at it then, but it covers the Diamondback logo, whether or not that matters, I don't really care. So the next thing to install is the cadence sensor. So that it's already plugged in up here. So this will then feed down to the sensor, which will be connected to the frame down here. So the piece connected to here will just, as it goes round, it triggers the magnet. Now to fit the cadence sensor, you've got to have obviously the magnet that it speaks to, but then you need the magnets themselves. Now these connect to here. So it's this actual arm, because the middle bit doesn't move, so therefore they have to connect to the arm of the pedal. So what we've got is this piece here, which you connect to the inside of the pedal, and then you connect the disc to the outside. So if I show you here, this slides apart, by the way. So once it's in, you clip it on and you hold it in place with this metal pin. So that's what holds this circle together. And you need to make sure that obviously it's perfect around the axle here, because obviously what you don't want it to do is be that shape. It has to be a perfect layout when it's compared to the magnet. So first things first, you've got to be able to then connect that to there. So I'm going to start by loosely putting this in the right place. So again, you are reliant on your many clips. That's what you're connecting it with. Now mine is actually concaved on the inside. This, if you can see on there, is also concave. So whereas with some, if it was rounded, you'd put that on the outside. Mine, I'm actually going to turn it so it's going into the gap. And so that will be on the inside where the sensor can actually read the information. So what I want to do now is complete the circle. So I've got the first half of the disc, so now I need to put the second half. Remember, you need to make sure you've got the working surface. I don't know if you'll be able to see it on this camera, but it does say working surface. You need to make sure they both match. You'll have to put this on there first before you connect the second half, because otherwise you just won't be able to get it on. So working surface is on that side, So then that will slide together, the two bits slot together. So there's our circle in place. And then what we've got to do then is clip it with this metal pin. So these bits, it's just a case of stretching it, but if you just stretch it, it will hold that disc in place. So if I go around the outside, clip, that's it, it's dead straightforward. So now it's a case of trying to get that in exactly the right place so the magnet can read it. And it means the magnet reader has to be right down in that gap there. But when I'm doing that, it's actually rubbing against it, which means this has to be further away. So that's where we make the adjustments here. And we can put the disc just a little further away from the frame. The magnet needs securing around about there, so right at the bottom of the frame. And once we've got that secure and we know that that's where it's going to go, then we can start to tighten this so we know that it's always going to match as it goes past. Okay, now the cadence sensor has the option here to be secured by a self-adhesive bit that's on the back and also clips. Now, we do not want this to move, so I would suggest you do what I've done and use both. And that's moving, look, in a perfect circle, so I don't have to worry about the distance. It's the right place in relation to the magnet. If anything, maybe the magnet could move up a tiny bit. Okay, so I've clearly installed the magnet a little bit too low because it's not being triggered by the motion of the wheel, which is a trial and error thing, and that's a lesson you should learn from my mistake. Before you pull these too tight, I'm going to have to clip those off. Thankfully, I've still got more. And then move that up so that the magnet is triggered by the motion of the pedals. But I'm going to fix that, and then I'll pin these cables up, and then we'll take it out on the road and let me talk you through exactly how it works, and then have a go. Okay, so test ride time. So first things first is turn on the battery. I'll show you on my Meta glasses. You just literally hold your finger on there for a second. You can see where you just have to keep your finger. Oh, it actually clicks. So it's a click. So you just got to click. So I've got all 5 lights on, so I'm on full power. I have to turn this unit on just by holding my finger on there for a second. There we go. So that will now tell me I've travelled 0.3 kilometres because I have just gone up and down the road on it, and also my speed. So let's get going. So I'm in a relatively high gear setting off, and you can feel it straight away. So I'm immediately doing 14 kilometres an hour without a great deal of effort. Okay, so as you start pedaling, the motor kicks in virtually straight away. You can really feel the difference it makes. And I'm up to 28 kilometers an hour now. Now, it's worth noting that the actual motor will only support me up to 25. So anything over and above is me still working. So it's not like it's one of those kind of electric bikes that does all the work for you. You still have to pedal. You still have to really get behind it if you want to actually see it working properly. But I'm at 30 kilometers an hour now, if we look down, or 29. And so while I'm putting the effort in, at the same time, I can't feel the motor, but I'm sure it's supporting me because I'm above that 25 kilometers an hour. But that initial set off, you could really feel the torque. This actually has 40 Newton meters of torque, which is pretty impressive actually. Now I've pulled over briefly just to highlight a couple of points. One, I'm wearing my Ex-Nito helmet. Now I know it looks bigger than your average cycle helmet, but there's a good reason for that. This is designed to protect you in an accident up to 25 miles per hour, which is a damn sight more than your normal cycle helmet, and probably more in line with the kind of speeds you're going to travel at on an e-bike. So if you have an e-bike or an e-scooter, definitely consider one of these. I have done a video review. The link is in my history, or you can just click up there and you can go and watch it. But it's definitely worth considering upgrading your helmet when you're upgrading your bike. Right, I've also come to a stop because I think it's when you accelerate this thing really comes into its own. So I'm going to, again, shoot through here. So you can see that's the camera that's shooting me now. There's my speedo. So we're just going to set off. I'm still in a really high gear and I can feel the motor kick in straight away. So that's up to 15, 18, 20, 22, 25, 26, and I can feel the motor ease off at 25. It definitely stops helping you at 25 kilometers an hour. But from an acceleration point of view, it's brilliant. Now, while you are riding, and I really do hope you can hear me over the wind, just take you through the control here. So I'm doing 24 kilometers an hour. If I touch it here, then you can see the distance I've traveled. And then you can see my average speed and the maximum speed I've achieved. So it's giving you a nice constant feed of information. You can see the battery capacity, which will be the capacity of the actual main battery, not of this because it doesn't have a power of its own. And you've also got the little rocker switch at the bottom, so I can turn it down. So now I've got no support, that's just me, in which case having to work a little harder. But if I put that all the way up to 5, you can really feel the difference. But bear in mind, I'm at 25, so any faster than this, I won't feel much difference at all. But that's what you want. At the end of the day, it's here to support your own efforts, so you get fit, you enjoy the ride, but you are still at least doing some cardio. And for me, that's super important. So how do I rate it? I've ridden the old Swytch, and to be honest, the motor I think is more impressive in this. It just feels a bit smoother. In comparison to the other e-bike kits I've tested, I think from a motor point of view, again, I think this thing's superior. From a battery point of view, it also seems, it's early days, but it seems really good. It fits nicely on the frame. It's good for a really big range. The range specifically is here. And it's not intrusive. The weight on the bike is exactly where I would choose it. So this is the Go Plus, getting a big thumbs up from me. Thanks so much for watching. I, again, hope you can hear me. And I will see you on the next video. Because in the meantime, there's miles to cover.